Welcome back to the Wealth of Wellness. Today, I have a guest who teaches her clients how to work in sync with their monthly cycle. Janina Hamilton shows you how to harness your body's natural rhythm to boost productivity, make more money, and finally run your business without burning out. On her podcast, Work with Your Cycle, she gives you practical strategies, expert insights, and real life stories to align your work with your menstrual cycle. Her motto is stop pushing against your biology and start working with it and watch your business thrive. Janina, welcome to my channel.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Of course, I love talking about anything and everything cycle syncing, so I'm so glad you're here. Um, let's get started. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so like you said, my name is Janina Hamilton, and I help women who have businesses, especially online service providers and coaches. I help them to structure their business around their cycle because so often you see the push through energy, the productivity hacks and tips and tricks that are all made for men pretty much because they have a regular 24-hour cycle, whereas we have the 28-day-ish cycle. And so when we use that biology that we have, it becomes a pretty much a superpower because we can use the tasks that work well with us during each phase of our cycle to do specific tasks within our business and keep the momentum and rewrite what consistency means. And so that's what I help my clients to do. We go and we do a deep dive into what's making them not be aligned with their body and change around what we can. Because there are sometimes, that some things you just can't change, but as closely as possible to work with their cycle.
I love this because that's what I want to teach everybody, and it changed my life in so many ways.
Yeah.
But first, I want to know, like, what was your life like before you learned about cycle syncing and any of that? What were you feeling? What was going on at work? Tell me everything.
Yeah, so before I learned about cycle syncing, I had a bookkeeping business. And so, that has regular deliverables. It is a service provider, business. And sometimes my clients weren't giving me things that I needed on when I needed to be doing them, right? Because there's certain things that during certain times of the month that you want to give them certain reports, reconciling bank accounts and things like that. And so I was doing a lot of catching up from that. I wasn't setting those boundaries that would help to match my biology, my cycle, that would help them in the long run as well. And so I was doing a lot of pushing through, a lot of making sure that my clients still had what they needed, even though they weren't respecting me, which meant that I also wasn't respecting me. And so it pushed me to an edge, probably towards the middle of the pandemic, because I started it just before the pandemic. I had a little breakdown, and my husband goes, "Hang on, what's going on?" And so the first thing was, okay, what self-care type of things are you going to do now? But of course, it's in the middle of the pandemic. So that meant that we rewrote what self-care meant, and started there. And then I also discovered cycle syncing. And so those two things, hand in hand, led me here because I did eventually let go of the bookkeeping business. And I started self-care coaching. And then I realized, okay, well, most of what I'm doing is actually like helping women to rest and use their menstrual and luteal phases to really rest. And I'm like, okay, well, let me just lean completely into this. And here I am.
Nice. I love that. I had a similar story where I was just burnt out. And then during COVID, also, I was like, I need to take care of my own health.
Mhm.
So, how did you learn about cycle syncing?
Yeah. So I had a friend she just started talking about that she was doing that like on her own. And I was like, that's interesting. So I did my own research and found the tasks that would match the phases of my cycle. Then I took a course on menstrual cycle syncing. So I've just been deep diving into it and playing around with it first for myself before I started teaching other people how to do it. But what ended up happening was I was putting it out there to my clients, and I could see how it was changing them.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I was like, yeah, let's make sure that I keep doing this. And then it ended up being that I'm now teaching others how to do it full time.
Nice. Yeah. I absolutely love that because I had the same thing. Like once I felt so much better, I was like, I need to teach this and share this with the world.
Yep.
So I love that our paths are so similar. So now give us some examples of how you plan your own work in the month.
Yeah. So the first thing that I do is make sure that when I am scheduling calls, because that's like one of the biggest things is when is my luteal and menstrual phase due to be? And you might have seen like part of my calendar was not available when we had a call before. So I block a couple of days off when I know when I'm expecting it to come so that I don't have to be forward facing during that time. If I can find networking events during my ovulation, then I do that. So and I don't track. I think I had somebody else ask me this. Well, how do you track? And I'm like, well, I track on a good old fashioned calendar. Like I have a wall calendar. So it doesn't have to be something that's, like an app or something that is really big and fancy in order to do this. But especially then again, I do that for for those two things. I do plan ahead for those. But on Sunday, I do take a look at what do I have, like what is my phase going to be? And then I plan what tasks match the phase on Sunday. So I take a look. I call it the method. I understand where I'm at.
Mhm.
Then I map out what the tasks are, and then I plan them on the days. So that's how I work, and that's what works for me, work for my clients so far. And then sometimes things don't fall into that place, but then you prepare for that. I think that's one of the things that I help them to see too is, like if you do end up having or wanting, like I have had a time where there was a networking call that I love the lady, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to hers, even though it's during my menstrual. So I planned ahead for that, and I decided, okay, well, during this time, or the day before, I'm really going to work on like inactivity, even like, and then so I could have the energy to show up how I want to. So, there's a little bit of play in it for sure, but yeah, that's basically how that looks for me for day to day.
Yeah, and you're so right. You can plan, right? We can all plan ahead, but life will throw something at us. There will be a challenge. There will be some sort of plot twist, or whatever. So
Mhm.
the thing I love about cycle syncing is that even though you're planning, it's still a little bit flexible
Yep.
as long as you're planning around that whatever one event, or you're planning your rest in, you're planning your other things. And I've had the same issue where I try to do my networking and social engagements and podcast recordings when I'm ovulating. But sometimes the calendars don't work out that way. So if it is in a
Yep.
different phase, I just make sure that I'm taking extra care of myself before and after that, whatever it is, event. So that is
Yep.
great. What are some of the benefits that you see with syncing your work to your cycle?
Yeah. So emotionally, there's that layer of guilt that sometimes comes from women when you are feeling like you're not doing anything. But when you use your like luteal and menstrual phases for working on your business, that is the biggest benefit. Because I was finding that a lot of women, they don't work as much on their business as far as like marketing and cleaning up their back ends and seeing what it is that they can improve on because they're always in go mode. Right. And I think for myself, being able to take a step back during those phases and analyze business, that has made a huge difference for me in understanding that just because I'm tired and I'm resting, I need to be on the couch, doesn't mean that I don't need to do, I'm not doing anything, that the wheels are not still turning in business. So yeah, that's one of the biggest benefits is that things are still happening
Yeah.
just because you're not. Yeah. And that because sometimes when you feel guilty for resting, you don't do anything,
Yeah.
but you are good at other things during that time. So taking the time to do those things really catapults business in a different direction.
Yeah. And I think one of the challenges we face as women is we've been trained, like you said, to ignore it, right? And push through. And that's not how our bodies work. That's not how our biology works. And when you learn to work with it, right, you unleash
Yep.
this like feminine power that you're like, wow, where did this come from?
Yeah. Yeah.
um, do you find any challenges with the cycle thinking?
There are sometimes you feel like you know what you want to do and sometimes or know that what is good for you and you just don't want to do it. Um, because especially like sometimes you'll feel a little creative in like your luteal phase, but that's your like detail oriented button up phase. You'll get a new idea, but then you try to start it and nothing happens, and that's frustrating. That happened to me like last week. Yeah, I had this idea and I'm like, this is a great idea. And I started doing stuff and I'm like, no, you don't have I didn't have the energy to work on it. I didn't the space to do it. It just did not work. And so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just sit on it. And but it increases capacity. It really does when you decide to just say, okay, maybe this is or this isn't the right time. I'll set it aside and then I'll pick back up. And even just writing things out, because I realize that I have like a lot of lists in my
Me
luteal
too.
phase. Um, and then going back and revisiting that list, especially during menstrual when there's a that intuitive
Mhm.
time where you can go, okay, well, that really would not have worked out as well as I thought. I was just telling my sister, actually, I was like, I had thought of this idea of like a new way to generate leads, and I've totally forgotten about it because it was such a like crazy luteal something, and I'm like, this is no, that's not gonna work. It just isn't gonna work.
Yeah, when the logical brain kicks in, it's like, oh, maybe
Yes,
not.
yes, yeah.
um, I love it. Yeah, so if there are certain weeks where you're more creative, right, and more.
Mhm.
There are other weeks where you're more productive. There are weeks where the behind the scenes work is more important.
Yep.
Reflecting on your past month or your new ideas or whatever. So I
Hmm.
really love that you incorporate all of that into your business, into your own life, right?
Thanks. Yeah.
And I'm sure for you, I noticed this for myself. Like it's not just your business, right? It flows into your personal life. It flows into your
Yes.
social life, your relationships, right? Like once you
Yep.
figure it out, you're like, wow, I didn't know life could be like this.
Right. Right. And then become more aware of those who aren't. um, because they're tired all of the time, and then they're wondering why they're tired. Or I think one of the things that I saw recently, like on Threads, a lady was like, I had this long list of things to do, but all I did was like organize my house today. It's like, well, that's because you were trying to do things in a
In the
different
wrong place. Yeah.
phase. It's like, so yeah, your to-do list is probably full of creative things, and you are probably in luteal phase, and you're like, let's organize everything and get my life right before I need to sit down and be still.
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah.
It's amazing how our bodies are, just programmed to work with this cyclical nature, right? Um, so what tips do you have for that woman who's maybe never heard of this and this is her first time hearing it? Like how does she get started with cycle syncing? What do you recommend?
Yeah. So one of the first thing I say is like become aware of where you are. In When I work with clients, that is the first thing that we do. I give them a sheet that has like the list of times from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. and they track their energy. And so
Oh,
not now, so they
interesting.
don't, yeah, so they don't just track their cycle, they also track their energy because we work
Like that.
both with both of them. Because I know by 2 p.m. I'm like, I'm done with most things. Right? But when you work with your cycle and you work with your energy, then you can have that cross and it becomes even more powerful. So start tracking where you are in your cycle
Mhm.
and then also track, for a week or so what your energy looks like during the day. Because we have that fluctuation during the day. We also have fluctuation during the week. I know that by Thursday or so, I can have calls, but to do like deep focused work, it's just not gonna happen. So learning where you are, not just in your cycle, but where your energy is, will help you to move along and use them to your advantage.
Yeah. And I think once you get used to it, it becomes very intuitive, right?
Yes. Yep. Yep.
Nice. Yeah. It does take, it's a little bit of a learning curve, but after that, it's just like, what do I feel like? What does my body need? Like you're just asking yourself.
Hmm.
Um, and these are all things, again, we've been trained to ignore and not worry about. But you do need to think about them and worry about them. So I love that.
Yeah.
Now you have a free gift you would like to offer. Talk
I
about that.
do. Yes, it is called the Cycle Sync CEO Planning Map, and it gives the tasks that are good or for most people within each phase of their cycle. And so you could take that, and it also gives my framework of like understand where you are. So find where you are on your cycle for the phase, and then find the tasks, and then plan it out. So that's what we have for you so that you can start using the tasks that are good for you in your each cycle to see what changes that you can make as soon as possible, just to move things around, what you can move around, so you can see how it feels.
Nice. And I will put the link for that down in this description box so people can
Okay,
grab it very quickly.
thank you.
If they have a question or they want to connect with you, where can people find you?
Sure. Yeah, I'm mostly on Threads and Instagram. So I'm Janina H Coaching on both of them.
Sounds good. So again, I'll put the links down there. And I love this. Like I said, I love talking about all things cycle syncing, and I'm get so excited when I see somebody else doing it. And then it's working in their life too, right? So I love that. And I thank you again for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Amy.
Of course. And in closing, if you have any questions about how to work with your biology or your cycle, reach out to either one of us. We're happy to share our experiences and get you started.
Yeah.
You guys will see me in another video. Bye bye.